Alright, welcome back guys. Another video. Today we're going to talk about the best talents for bursting in PvP. And I can go over why, definitely why, and whatnot. So let's just hop right into it. The first thing to talk about is why these talents and why you would choose them on each row, okay? Like the first thing, it's actually pretty similar. This talent build is what almost everybody's running, even on pre-patch and stuff. And it's because I've actually tried every single talent in this tree. And you really don't have, even in a PvP engagement, you just don't have enough time for things like dots to tick or whatnot. So, like, starting in the first tree, I don't even use hardly Flame Shock when I'm PvPing. I'm mostly Frost Shocking, and I've tried where you walk up Flame Shock, but they just run. It doesn't matter who it is. But if you're playing against a melee player, they're probably not going to run. You can make use of this, but it's I think casters kind of own PvP, so mostly everyone's usually a caster. So even if they're casting, Elemental Blast has a 40-yard range. You can at least hit them if they get away from you, and it does considerable damage. Even if you saw Flame Shock's ticking damage 1276, you increase that by 100%, so it's like an extra 1200 damage. Elemental Blast, it is more damage, but it just isn't more burst damage. And that's what you want. You want to try to burst someone down through the heals while they're, you know, not expecting it. Well, not. Now, a lot of times I use my 5 stacks of Maelstrom anyone healing because I'm always getting attacked here. Where like everyone targets us running around in backgrounds because you're a shaman. So, but when there's a chance that you're at full health and you don't have to actually heal yourself, Elemental Blast comes in handy. It's pretty good against mail and everything. It also gives you, you know, those stat buffs too, but I don't really care about those. I really wish it was like reworked to something like, if Elemental Blast is supposed to be like nature, fire, and frost damage all in one, it'd be really cool if it, like, if you use it, it did the same damage, but instead of giving you stats, it gave like the Flame Shock on the target, a Frost Shock on the target, and then I don't know, the same damage as a Lightning Bolt or something like that. It's like all of those in one. That would make more sense for this move. I don't care about the stat increase at all. Forceful Winds. This is if you actually have time to stack it up. I never get any time to like rumble with someone long enough for this to stack unless it's another melee character. And half the time they have a lot of armor anyway. The damage is subpar, and you just don't have time for it to stack up. Not only that, they're going to be nerfing this in the future in about a week, so there's actually, for me, there's no reason to run this one out. So the best one in this row is Elemental Blast. The next one is Storm Flurry. Now I know I personally like the other two as well, and the only reason I'm running Storm Flurry and Elemental Assault is because of Ascendance. It helps that bit damage when you turn into an Ascendance. Other than that, if I wasn't running Ascendance, I probably wouldn't be running these two. Even if you say Storm Flurry, 25% chance to do the 40% of normal damage, well, sometimes during the heat of things, Storm Strike gets up to 2,000, and even 40% of that's like 800. So you could say there's a chance to do an extra 800 damage during the heat of stuff when, you know, stuff's proccing and your damage is higher or whatnot. But see, if you did this one, the damage is considerably more. Kind of, maybe 600. I have like primal or whatever on gear, so it's like really good with that, but it's actually more than this one, to be honest. But again, Storm Flurry is physical damage. Everyone's running around, it seems like, with an amazing amount of armor, so you don't really do that much. Personally, I kind of like having most of my moves would be elemental damage, so you can take on things that have high armor like hunters and warriors and such. So I prefer Hot Hand more, but I wish it just did a little more damage. Now Ice Strike is cool for that reason. It does 700 damage, you know, when things are going on and you have ancestral resonance going on. This can hit for like 3,000. Kind of has a long cooldown. Is affected by haste, but you know, resetting shocks, it's okay. I mean, it's cool to have that little bit of a like that little perk on there. It does hit good if it crits and you have a good amount of mastery. It's actually better than Storm Flurry, but in the heat of stuff, I just don't really have too many buttons to try to hit. You have too many buttons on your bar, you don't really know what to do next, and you really would have to try to capitalize on ice striking and flame shocking, because you don't want to ice strike and frost shock, because you're just doing the same snare movement reduction. So you'd have to get used to flame shocking, catching up, ice striking the target, because it's also melee range, so it's not like a frost shock where you're trying to slow someone down as they're running and it's a ranged attack. You could also essentially, you could frost shock, ice strike, flame shock, but that's a lot of 3 buttons to set up when you have a small window when you're next to them. So I just do Storm Flurry to make it a little easier. And then on throw with Earth Shield. I always use Spirit Wolf. I like movement, but you know, this actually helps with healing. In fact, I believe if you're running Spectral Recovery, when you're healing yourself, if you have Earth Shield on you, I think that heal is also increased by 20%, which is good, and also Swelling Waves. So Earth Shield's been a lifesaver lately. Elemental Assault. Again, Fire Nova, even though it's getting a buff by 100% in a week, it's terrible, like damage-wise. Even when it crits, even with 100% mastery, like it's just not good enough unless you have a lot of them. So it's just definitely, that's not as good personally. Elemental Assault, yeah, I'm mostly going to be Storm Striking for the most part, and that has damage increase tied to it, and it creates Maelstrom Weapon too. So a stack of Maelstrom Weapon, you need those to help you heal or whatnot, or to get Elemental Blast off if you're going to do that. So Hailstorm was a pick I'd liked using a lot. It does do a lot of damage. It's doesn't really mess up anything you're doing in PvP to begin with. Like, you're gonna frost shock anyway. Definitely kind of don't want to pair Lashing Flames unless you're gonna go like Lash, Ice, and Hail to try to like Flame Shock, you know, Frost Shock, Flame Shock, you know, Frost Shock, Ice Strike, Flame Shock, do some stuff, Elemental, you know, Lightning Bolt into a Hailstorm, Frost Shock. I guess you could, if you wanted to be more magic oriented, which I like against casters and stuff. I mean, heavy armor. Technically, this one is more bursty than this one, but you know, my first initial opener is usually Storm Strike. So I want the Maelstrom weapon stacks for heals or Elemental Blast. So that's why I chose this one instead. Sundering, it's always the best in this tree, in my opinion. It's fire damage, so it increased my mastery. It also has a small stun, and it does help. It's kind of hard to not pick this one in this tree. You probably could get some really good burst off with the Stormkeeper and like Earthen Spike, but it only has a 1 minute cooldown, which is really cool. It's not a minute and a half or anything. So it's actually a longer cooldown in Sundering, but it doesn't come with any. It doesn't come with any sort of incapacitate or something like that. Well, if you look at Stormkeeper and Lightning Bolt, 150% more damage. So it's like your Lightning Bolt does 1,200 damage. It's still less than Sundering damage, even if critting or anything. But you get 2 of them instead of 1. So it could be good, in my opinion. I mean, Crashing Storm is basically a little tiny dot on the ground. I think that might be good for getting rogues out of stealth, maybe. Depending on like their distances for pulling their moves off, 5 yards or whatnot. This is kind of like a small electrical field. It doesn't do that much damage personally. I've tried to use it in dungeons and stuff, and I don't really feel like Crashing Storm is my style, that little tiny dot style. So the bottom tree, the only reason why I like Earthen Spike, but it's physical damage. So again, you do it on Mailwear or high armor plate or something, it just doesn't do hardly any damage. Now you get that increased buff to physical nature damage, which is really cool for something like this Dress to Gath trinket, which is like my favorite trinket. It is cool for that, but you know, in nature damage, I guess would help with lightning bolts or something. It also increases elemental blasts damage by 20%. So this in the future could be good for like increasing everything. Elemental spirits. This is only good if you have time to swing on someone and you get to stand there. And I only use mostly feral spirits for maelstrom stacking and a little bit of damage so I can heal myself or whatnot. It helps with constant damage. But the reason why we pick Ascendance is because now when you use it, it does 2697 nature damage AoE. So it's affected by mastery. It's increased by mastery. That is a really good high damage, that AoE damage, including you get the reduce cooldown and cost of Storm Strike, and it bypasses armor, which is really good. But the whole point of it is, in fact, the AoE damage. Okay. So I have this is my preferred bursting build. When it comes to the talents and PvP talents here, you can pick anything you want. Shamanism's good, so you get the haste, and you can proc a sensory resonance easier. So it's like getting haste and mastery at once. Thunder Charge is good if you have a little bit of Ride the Lightning is good if you have a little bit of mastery, and you're storm striking a lot if you want the little extra damage. Problem is, it doesn't actually proc off the original target unless there's someone nearby. So you're not really doing extra 200 nature damage on the target unless there's another target close to you. Thunder Charge is good if you're trying to, I've ran around with that. It's fun to like get your abilities back a lot quicker. And I used to run Counter-Strike Totem, but I like running Swelling Waves instead for heals. I don't really need the help of them attacking themselves to defeat someone in PvP, so I actually switched off and switched to Swelling Waves. Grounding is a lifesaver. It's basically the only way you can beat paladins. And don't get gripped by Death Knights. I like that one too. It helps all around. So of course, this is why I'm running. Spectral Recovery is cool. So the talent. I'm mostly talking about the regular talents and not the PvP talents. So I'll show you how I have the trinket macroed to Sundering, and so let's say I was going to run up to someone. I usually Frost Shock and then Feral Lunge is my first choice to do, because then you get right on them. Frost Shock, Feral Lunge, and then you're close. I'm also running the trinket. This is the most important part too. The not trinket, but the essence you're running in your neck is Blood of the Enemy. And I actually got this off of I didn't think about doing this until I watched Tickle on YouTube, and he was running Blood of the Enemy with like his one-shot burst elemental build, and I thought, let me look at what this does. And it has a really high AoE damage of 1700. It's not affected by mastery though, but you gain 25% crit chance on the target for 10 seconds, and your crit damage increased by 25% for 5 seconds. It also increases your crit strike every time you crit, which is cool. Anyway, so I have that as well. So the best thing I do is you Frost Shock, Feral Lunge into Blood of the Enemy, into the Sundering with the trinket, into Ascendance. And that is, I seen to be the fastest way to try to burn anyone down. So it's Flame Shock, Feral Lunge, Blood of the Enemy, Sundering Trinket, Ascendance. So now you can see that Ascendance hit for 8,000. We can see right here it was about 27,000 damage. I don't know, am I hitting from far away? I still am. But you can see Ascendance crit for 8,000. Spine Eruptions about 8,000. That's on something like this dummy, but out in the world, if it doesn't crit or anything on a plate wearer, it's only like 1,500, 1,900. Then there's the Sunder hit for 2k, Blood Enemy hit for 17. You got a couple melee swings off. Flame Tongue, that doesn't count because I was still swinging as Ascendance. So technically, you can do about, if you crit all that, you can hit about 25k or so on most players, unless they're running versatility, of course, within that little bit of a window, which was, I don't know, let's see, 6 or 7 seconds You can get that off, which is it's good to burst someone down like that in PvP or even in arenas or whatever. But I've been kind of owning up using this style of rotation when I can. And that's so I got some clips here. I can show you some of the damage out there. Enjoy. All right, so go out there, try out these talents, try out this essence, try your best this week to get this trinket. I wanted it. I actually posted in a video I made a couple weeks ago, and I got it like the same week, and I've been running around with it, and I haven't really been posting any videos about it because I was still trying out the other talents to figure out exactly how, like, what's worked best for me in PvP right now. And so this is what I decided on, was like this build, this trinket. So run around, try that. Frost Shock, slow them down. Feral Lunge into the blood of the enemy, Sunder, Ascendance. If they get away or they're still alive, you can just try to get some Storm Strikes off, and it'll follow them if they blinked or got away from you or something. It does help. That part does help. And then, of course, after that, you can do whatever. But that's, I found, the most best burst. Thanks for watching. If you haven't already, sub to the channel. Like this video. Let me know down in the comments if you tried this build or you got this trinket, so I congratulate you. It's like the best, funnest trinket ever. And let me know what you think. Peace.